And to me, you have to, everybody has a different life, everybody has a different ability to handle stress, everybody has a different ability for
Yeah.
all of that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
to put that type of pressure on yourself is self-defeating in the
Yes.
purpose of what you're doing, which is trying to
Yeah.
heal, you know.
Exactly.
So hello, everybody, and welcome to Letting Go, episode 5. I am your host, Joe Baca, and again, thank you so much for joining me. Really excited to continue my conversation here in this episode with a very good friend of mine and someone who helped me so much during my recovery process, Ruth Chiles. And we're going to continue our conversation in this episode from the last episode. We opened up with a little bit of a review here. But now we're going to talk about specifically our nervous system. And we're going to talk about two elements that are very big parts of our nervous system. You're either in some sort of danger or you're in safety. And our nervous system runs kind of in either of those two tracks, okay? And what has become the norm for most people is to always be running in danger. And so we're always like super hyper focused, but not necessarily in a healthy way, because we're always running from something or trying to do something or trying to put uber amounts of energy in that isn't necessarily efficient. First of all, but then we don't realize that we're there. We don't realize that we're in that constant state of anxiety and push. So we talk about how to learn to recognize what that feels like, what that is like. And then we also talk about how to make safety the norm, because that is really what should be the norm. Because if you really look at life, I mean, for the most part, you're in safety. You're not in immediate danger all the time. And yet we've learned to function as if we are. And this is, again, we discussed this a little bit, and she talks about this is very, very deep down. This is not upper brain. This is like super subconscious, lower brain activity. But yet it carries so much weight in how our bodies actually respond to certain things. Because a lot of times we can respond to things like threats that aren't actually threats. And that's because we're not running, or we're not used to running our nervous system in safety. And so we talk about what safety feels like as well. We talk about attunement and what that is like. And then we talk about how we can go about turning our lives around so that we can realize that we are that we need to be running in safety. So we talk about how we want to, I guess, what am I trying to search for? We talk about how to start that process of changing our nervous system into running in safety mode, as opposed to, or in a safe mode, as opposed to running in a danger mode. And so that's really the meat of this episode. So it's really, really good, really all inclusive and holistic for just the general betterment of your life. So without further ado, we'll get to it. All right, me and Ruth Chiles, and hope you enjoy. We'll see you at the end. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Completely. Yeah. Yeah. And it slows the process down.
yeah,
The
and
faster we want to go, the slower we go, actually.
right. And I remember
Because we're
actually telling you that.
because we're keeping our nervous system in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
So we're keeping the brake on our progress.
Right.
Now, here's the really interesting thing. Now, this doesn't happen for everybody, but I have had a number of cases where I have done no work whatsoever, either on the instrument or on the person's hand.
Hmm.
All we've worked on is life events, the feeling of threat in the body,
Hmm.
understanding the different parts of there are several different threat modes in the nervous system, what safety mode feels like, and really getting awareness of that and
Hmm.
working through the events with the brain spotting so these capsules become released and the person is able, and then I show my clients how to come into safe safety in their nervous system, and we strengthen that.
Hmm.
And I have had a significantly large number of cases where once they've really established that, they've had the next session, they've gone, I'm playing my instrument perfectly, I have absolutely no dystonia.
That's amazing.
And we've done no work whatsoever on the
On the
hand or
instrument,
on
yeah.
the instrument.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, that doesn't happen for everybody because some people have the movement to some degree has become automated into
Hmm.
the nervous system. And so there is some work that we need to do then around
Right.
deactivating that automation of the tension.
Hmm.
But even so, there is a remarkable reduction of the amount of tension and the amount of the strength of the dystonic symptoms before we ever start to work on them,
Hmm. Hmm.
just by working on the nervous system.
Yeah, that's
You know,
amazing.
and that will,
Yeah.
I think that reduction is between 50 and 100%, depending on the person, just by working on the nervous system.
Wow.
And it's very confusing for a lot of my clients at the beginning when I go to them, I'm actually really not interested in your hand or your embouchure.
Right.
Not
Right.
because I'm not interested, but
Right.
it was the last domino to fall. So it's going to be the last domino to get
Wisdom.
up,
Right.
to get
Exactly.
back standing back up again.
Right.
So what I'm interested in is what your overall state is like, what your nervous system's doing.
Hmm.
That's where we want to focus. And once we get that piece right,
Hmm.
you will notice the effect.
Hmm. Hmm.
And up until we get that bit, you know, let's not worry about what's going on your with your hand on your embouchure or your breathing.
Hmm.
Let's just, you know, let's just work. Let's just be concerned about what's going on in your nervous system.
Right. Right. Right.
And
And
that can be really confusing.
how much does it, just to lightly touch on it real quick, how,
Mm,
because you brought up, the vagal,
mm,
and all that. So the vagal nerve
mm-hmm.
and how that kind of works, because I think if people are doing their enough, I guess enough research, you get to the point where you might find that, the
Mm,
vagal nerve in that
mm,
term,
mm,
and um
mm.
and that's like one of the, if you can just explain that a little. I mean, that's like one of the main nerves that goes through the entire body, right?
Right. So it's actually a system because even though it's a nerve, it has different channels in it. And
Uh-huh.
depending on the channel that we're in,
Hmm.
our nervous system is in safety or it's in threat.
Okay.
Okay. So it comes out of the deep brain, it runs past the ears and then runs down the neck,
Hmm.
down to the heart,
Hmm.
down to the adrenals, and into the digestive system.
Right.
So that's why when we feel nervous, our heart rate, our hearts, you know, different people have different responses. Some people the heart races, other people it's a kind of knot in the throat. Other
Hmm.
people the digestive system goes right off.
Right.
You know, there are different ways that can happen,
Hmm.
or a knot in the stomach.
Right. 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 Okay.
Okay, and that's because that's where the vagus nerve is traveling down through.
Okay.
And the reason is for that, you know, for survival. It's a
Hmm.
survival thing. We need the heart rate to come up in order to pump more oxygen around our body.
Hmm. Hmm.
We need the digestive system to stop because we want so the non-essential functions in the body get shut down.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
reproduction, digestion,
Hmm.
and even our immune system, which is why it's so frequent after a period of stress, people get sick
Right.
because the immune system's been suppressed.
Right. And see, that made
Okay.
sense because in 2019, that I think that was the year that I realized what I had, and
Right.
I was sicker than a dog through that entire year. I got the flu.
Yeah.
I got the flu twice.
Right.
I mean, and it was horrible. The whole thing
Yeah.
was horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
people might be able to
Yeah.
make ties, with all that, most definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
and I think
Hmm.
because of that, also healing, um, should probably be in a lot of ways holistic in a sense, as far as, just trying to make even better just choices from outside, trying to eat better, try and eat better,
Mm,
try and
mm,
just do
mm,
things that promote just general health. um
absolutely.
you know um
Yeah,
some sort
yeah,
of some sort of exercise, or just take a walk, get outside, do things that make you happy.
definitely, definitely.
I know we talked about this a little bit. I mean,
Mm,
even you know uh, there's a couple different ways to be happy, and so many people try a lot of times from the inside, which
mm,
is where it
mm,
really does, kind
mm,
of form the ball
mm,
of joy,
mm,
right? But
mm,
a lot of
mm.
times the way into that can be even just to smile. And
Yeah,
then, and regardless of how you're feeling, even just practicing an exercise,
yeah,
smiling
yeah,
can help, send those signals and kind of work its way backwards a little bit,
yeah,
to try
yeah,
and create
yeah.
that sense. So doing
And
things.
and you're right, because most of the information is traveling from the body into the deep brain and then up to the thinking brain.
Mhm.
That's where that's the direction of nearly all the information.
Right.
Now, we believe, because the thinking brain is the only bit we're conscious of, we believe it's the other way around. I think, and that what goes down into the body.
Mhm.
But it's a very kind of, it's not completely one way, but
Right.
it's, the downward track is very, very little, and the
I see.
upward track is like this massive freeway.
Okay. That's and
So
that's
when you
interesting. That's good to know.
so when you smile, you're using a huge amount of different muscles
Uh-huh.
in the face and so on and so forth, and that's sending information up to the brain that's going, things are good and things are safe.
hmm hmm That's good. I mean, and because that's something that we can. I mean, that's so simple in 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 activation to be able to just choose to
Mm,
do. You know,
mm,
you just
mm,
have to
mm.
you just have to let yourself, really.
Right, right,
And that's, I mean, that's an exercise that you can do, and show your body because all your body got before were just signs that it was under attack and under.
right,
So create signs, and for your body to realize that that was all a lie in
right,
the first place, and that, I think,
right.
that can help
Yeah,
a lot, when it comes to
abs-
just settling things down,
yeah,
obviously in
yeah,
conjunction with doing some of that inside work with past traumas and
yeah.
whatnot. Do those.
Yes, because I find that, it's really, what you're talking about is really supportive, but if we don't reintegrate these capsules, that's so strong, that's so powerful, and it's going on constantly. It's almost like we're living the past constantly in the present.
Right.
Because you're right, that threat's actually not here right now.
Right.
But the brain still thinks that it is, and it's normalized. It's normalized all of that.
hmm
So if we can give signs in the here and now that things are safe, it helps.
Right.
And it also helps with, we talk about the dystonic mentality, seriousness is part of that. We become when we've had adverse events, we become very serious people.
Right.
And kind of fun and lightness and silliness just feels like it's way off the map.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can definitely attest to that.
Mm, mm,
Most
mm.
definitely. My um and it's funny because you almost can't, you're almost like so in that ditch that there's
Yeah,
like no other way. Like, it's just,
right.
no, this is, you know that's just, this is just it,
Yeah,
you know
exactly,
um
exactly. It becomes like um, the only map in the world that
mhm.
exists. It's the only territory that exists
Yeah,
in the world.
and it's so
And
deep, you can't, I mean, you have no, you can't even peek over to see if there's anything else. I mean, it's just
right,
like that. Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and it becomes completely normalized. So
hmm
that, we start to have this sensation. We don't even have the perspective to realize that the sensation, the deep belief is this is the way life is,
hmm
and this is completely normal.
hmm
When it's actually so far away from our natural state.
Right.
Because our
Right.
natural state in life is to be safe.
hmm hmm and So, and this is actually moving along perfectly.
Mm,
So we're talking about, if you can sum up what safety feels like, and then
mm,
sum up what threat feels like,
mm,
um, and actually maybe in the reverse order. So what in general, what does threat feel like, and
mm.
how is it normalized?
Okay, so threat, there are different channels for threat,
Hmm.
okay? So one of them is what's is a hyperactivation of the
Hmm.
sympathetic nervous system, okay?
Hmm.
So that will be anything that feels like things are going fast, feeling accelerated, I've got to do, overly focused, even just the fact that we feel like we've got staring eyes, our eyes are harsh, and
Hmm.
we get totally focused on one thing. And how many people have talked to me about, I'm just completely focused on my hand when I'm playing. It's
Right.
like I can't take my focus off it,
Yeah.
right?
And that's with my
Um,
left hand. That's like what it was. I always with my right hand. It was
mm,
always like, this is like the most natural thing ever, and I was always real proud
mm,
about of my bow hand. You know what I mean? I was
right,
just so happy
right,
with it. It was just
right.
felt so free and so natural, and just,
Yeah.
and then when it came to passages of like, real intricate little, and so which is why I loved playing just real melodic, just
Mm,
fat
mm,
fat
mm,
melodies,
mm.
um because I felt like I did those real well.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
and it's not that I played like the little itchy stuff
Mm.
poorly. It's just it like like that's just where
Rah,
my,
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah,
would, as
yeah.
opposed to just letting that fly too.
Yes,
But that's
yeah,
exactly, it was
yeah.
like when it came to that, it was just my brain.
Boom. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So anything that's to do with that hyperactivity, needing to be seen, needing to be recognized, needing to be valued by other people.
Hmm.
Um, um,
Another point
mm,
is that exactly, and I think that's something, as performers, I think there's obviously a natural, that, how do you put it, if you're going to perform, I think 95 to 99% of people can very easily be swayed that way, because
yeah.
you hear your first applause, or you're starting to work your way up in the food chain, and
Yeah.
you want by other talented musicians that you admire, or all of those
Mm,
sort of things,
mm,
and you can
mm.
start to very much teeter on other
Yeah.
people's opinion, you know
Yes.
which can
Yeah.
have its place if you're going to learn, but not but you can't give it actual internal value
Right.
of yourself. But it's
Yeah.
so easy to
Exactly.
fall into that as a performer.
And part of that is because our initial sense of safety in life comes because our there's a continuity from being in the womb to being out of the womb in our relationship to our mother. And what our mother is doing is being attuned to us. So as babies and small children, we don't have the capacity to attune to ourselves. We're externally, our mother is who we are. We don't have our own identity.
Mhm.
Okay. And so we don't have the capacity to self-regulate our emotions, and we don't have the capacity to really feel and be attuned to oneself.
Mhm.
That happens because our mother is attuned to us, and through the calmness of her nervous system, we can regulate our own nervous system.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's the basis of secure attachment.
Okay.
And that's the basis of feeling secure in life,
Mhm.
and that life is a safe place to be. Now, if we haven't experienced that, and most people, that the majority, I mean, it's not everybody, but it is a vast majority, meaning above 95% of all the people that I've worked with,
Mhm.
have not had that experience as small children and
Yeah.
babies.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's been some kind of attachment break or some kind of lack of attunement, and that's normal, as a mother, if I'm in threat mode because of my own experiences, I can't attune to my child in the same way as I would do if I felt completely safe,
Right. Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So it becomes this family chain
Mhm.
often.
Mhm.
So when that hasn't happened, as adults, we lack the capacity to self-regulate.
Mhm.
and we lack the capacity to be attuned to ourselves. In fact, what we've tended to learn to do is attune to our mother in order to feel safe. Rather than her being attuning to us to feel safe, we become attuned to her. So we
Uh-huh.
become really aware. And so almost what we do, it's like this movement of self-abandonment
Mm-hmm.
in order to please mummy. I mean, it's this really unconscious, right?
Uh-huh.
But
Right.
this kind of self-abandonment in order to kind of keep myself in her attention
Right. 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 Right.
in order to survive.
Right.
These are
Right.
very
Interesting.
primordial, very deep movements
Yeah.
in the brain.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
most of
Yeah.
it, we're not even aware of it in any
Mm-hmm.
shape or form.
Mm-hmm.
And so that movement out of ourselves means that we continue that in life. So we start
Mm-hmm.
to look constantly to other people to tell us that
It's the
we're
same,
okay.
right? It's the same concept, just carried over to
It's the
general
same
life. Yeah.
movement.
Right. Right. Right.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
And I
And
think, I think people need to give that its relevance too. There's a reason why sayings form. Um,
mm,
uh, and when somebody says, if obviously it's been enough of an issue where people say, oh man, he has mommy issues.
right,
There's a reason
right.
why a saying
Yeah,
like mommy issues
exactly.
would become so prevalent, because I think these are
Yeah,
things that were somewhat kind of understood in a simpler form, for
right,
previous generations. So there's
right,
definitely
right.
validity in what you're saying.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's turned into a cliche because it's become overly simplified.
Right.
This is much, much more complex, and it's not up here in this top part of the brain. It's not emotional. It's a very deep survival movement in the deep brain,
Mm-hmm.
which is I need to move out of myself to keep myself in the vision of my mother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if I stay in myself, I'm out of her vision. So I need to be following her vision because she's not attuned to me.
Right.
It's very, very, very deep, and it's very subtle, and it has many different layers, and it really
Mm-hmm.
can't be simplified in the way that it has often been in the past, but
Right.
it's there.
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And
Interesting.
one of the very early exercises the first exercise actually that the way I'm working now that I give people even before they start working to me is a video that I record on YouTube, which is an attunement exercise, and it's just about coming back into the body and inhabiting the body from the inside.
Okay.
So and it's really about coming home to really feeling into oneself, knowing who I am, feeling the depth of that,
Mm-hmm.
and through that, also there's the whole aspect of self-care. So I stop, which is one of the things you were talking about before. So I
Mm-hmm.
stop abandoning myself, because the dystonia in itself is there's a dissociative aspect to it, meaning that we can't quite feel the body any longer.
Mm-hmm.
We can't quite feel the hand, or we can't quite feel the lips, or we can't quite feel the breathing any longer, because we've come out of ourselves, we've dissociated from the body.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the resolution is to come back into this deep sense of attunement and realize that the adult part of me, this part that can self-regulate, that can just be still and strong,
Mm-hmm.
that part of me then starts to attune to the younger parts of me that are still scared.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the ways that we bring the nervous system back into safety. So instead of kind of this being this movement inside to be moving externally for others to attune to us,
Mm-hmm.
what we start to do is be able to attune to ourselves.
Okay. Right. Wow.
Mm.
That's that's
Yeah.
that's that's cool. It's that's really, I can see why you wanted to like take this further into
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
studying this. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what does safety feel like, and how can we normalize safety
Okay.
into,
Yeah.
and in the simplest, I guess, because and I'm saying in the simplest because I know it's a complex issue, but
Mm.
especially for people who are just beginning,
Yes.
the whole thing looks huge,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
I know you've been there,
Absolutely.
I've been there.
Yeah.
So where would be what does safety feel like, and what is the best way to simply begin that
Okay.
process?
Yeah. Okay. So let me just finish on threat, because
Sure.
I've talked about the hyperactivation of the nervous
Oh,
system.
yes. Okay,
There's
absolutely.
also the hypo-activation of the nervous system.
Okay.
Its technical name is dorsal vagal collapse,
Hmm.
which is where we just feel in this deep hole. We can't connect. We need to just kind of go into our cave,
Yeah.
can't face anything. Everything
Yeah.
is collapsed. There's no energy in the body.
And
Depression
these are those
is a
feelings of
hypo
yes,
state.
depression, isolation, which I felt most definitely. Um,
Mm,
and that, especially I think having to go into work in the state that I was in,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
really compounded the issue.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and
mm.
but yes, definitely depression, isolation. Um,
I'm feeling a victim. I don't like the word very much, but it's feeling
yeah,
like there are outside forces that I can't, they're greater than I am,
they're greater than yeah,
and
exactly.
they're doing it to me.
Uh-huh.
Mm, mm.
Yes, exactly.
And so, what does safety feel like? Safety feels like, firstly, it's about being attuned to oneself. I'm inhabiting my body. I can feel everything that's going on in my body. And it's not that everything feels wonderful and beautiful and happy. It may be that I've got a tension, or it may be that something's uncomfortable, but I can sustain it. It doesn't overwhelm me. It doesn't become me.
Hmm.
I'm this still I'm the stillness inside of me.
Hmm.
And from that stillness, I can sustain whatever's going on. The bits that feel great and the bits that don't feel great, I can be present with them just
Hmm.
the way they are. I often, that I use this metaphor often, which is a gyroscope, which was this toy that I had as a kid, which is was an axis with a weight of where the center of gravity is.
Hmm.
And then it had these kind of like metal rings around it.
Hmm.
And when you spin it at top speed and the axis is perfectly still and perfectly centered, the axis just seems completely still
Hmm.
and upright. And there is perfect harmony. But actually, the gyroscope is moving super fast,
Hmm.
but there's no acceleration. It's still feels still and harmonious,
Hmm.
and so that's what safety feels like.
Okay. And
Mm.
then what are the first kind of steps to take towards that in your opinion?
Mm.
What can people do to take a first step
Mm.
into that?
That was why I wanted to record the video on it with the attunement
Okay.
exercise,
And
because
where
for me that's the first step.
can you
Mm.
actually would you mind giving that site where people can find that? And then I can put a
Okay,
link.
so that you can find that on my YouTube channel, which is
Okay.
Focal Dystonia Cure, or on my website, which is focaldystoniacure.com.
Okay. And then
Okay.
I'll put a link right on this piece.
Yes, yeah, and I've recorded several videos there, which
Sure. No, that's great.
which
Yeah, and they
talk
can
about all these sorts of things.
yeah.
But there's one that's called attunement exercise, which is about half an hour long, 25 minutes, half an hour
Okay.
long. The others are kind of real short sound pieces. So
Hmm.
when you see the long video and it's called attunement exercise, that's the one.
Cool.
And for me, that's the beginning point. That's the
Nice.
starting place for it.
And is it beneficial to even revisit these first steps again as you're going through your healing process and recovery process? I would imagine so, right?
Right. And for me, it's a constant, even at this point, I spend my time every morning before I begin my day
Hmm.
to attune to myself, to be really present with my nervous system, make sure that it's feeling really good and at peace.
Hmm.
And if something happens during the day that might throw me off, I'll stop and I
Yeah,
bring myself back in.
absolutely. And I know that's probably one of the biggest things that I've been able to take away from working with you is life is still life, and
Yep.
you don't control it at all.
No.
And but
Mm.
yet being able to kind of bring yourself back in,
Yes. Yeah.
and then you get to
Yeah.
that place again where what you were saying as far as that feeling of what safety feels like, and you're just you, and
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
fine,
Yeah.
and that's that's just it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
exactly, exactly. And you doesn't need to be anything great or inflated, or, that
right.
whole thing about the kind of, to be me, to be, good enough. I'm just good enough, just little old me, right?
Perspective, exact perspective on who you are, and
Yeah.
your relation to yourself, into the world, and in my
Mm,
perspective, and I can't
mm,
speak for everybody,
mm,
but in my relation with God,
right.
and knowing how small I am,
Mm,
has really helped me in this
mm,
process, you know,
absolutely.
because the smallness of you, when you realize that,
Mm,
then you realize how much you can do with that little
yes. Yeah.
that littleness. It's amazing, absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and just from the Christian perspective, if you look at almost any of the stories in the Bible, actually, really every single Bible hero, minus
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, is somebody that is either tiny, weak,
Mm,
um, super imperfect, or
mm,
just a really rough
mm,
work, and
mm.
they're transformed.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so having that perspective
Mm,
on just you knowing who you are in relation to everything
mm, mm,
really
mm.
adds a lot of freedom,
Yes,
to
absolutely. Absolutely.
what you do, everything you do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no, that's amazing how all of this
Mm,
stuff connects.
absolutely.
And ultimately, I think what people can take from all of this really is just the fact that this experience in your life with dystonia is ultimately a gift if you continue to go
Yes.
through it,
Yes.
because I mean, I can't imagine being the person that I was before it. I don't ever
Mm,
want to go back to
mm,
that person,
mm, mm,
to
mm,
realize how deep of a
mm,
ditch you're walking in,
mm,
and how much more exciting the world is, and how much more joy you can bring out of every single
mm,
moment, even if it's not perfect,
mm,
or even if it's
mm,
not whatever your idea before was, like this what you really want it to be, or this
mm.
perfect happening of whatever,
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
how could one live like that? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
um
Yeah. Completely.
so I don't know if
Mm.
you have do you have any other thoughts, or any other thing that you think would be important?
Yeah, there is, and just really like to build on that. That
Sure.
I think part of the shift is that focal dystonia is not a problem.
Hmm.
It's actually, as you say, it is a gift. And it's a gift because what it's doing is it's the wisdom of your body telling you that there's something you've not been listening to. And it's going, because we've not listened, then it starts to scream,
Right.
shout,
Right.
becomes really obvious. And so when we stop making it a problem and we invite it in, as we invite it in as a welcome guest, and we really listen from a place of, you're wiser than I am,
Hmm.
that's when the shift begins to occur.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you would give me permission to, I'd love to finish with a Rumi poem, which is
Sure.
called The
No, no,
Guest
no.
House.
Absolutely. I
Mm,
think this is a great place to top it off,
mm, mm, mm.
this is really the track, or a version of the track that people can go on, and if you
Yeah,
can hear the joy in our voices, even discussing something
right,
that just for a few years ago for me, I felt like I was destroyed, and
right,
likewise for
right.
years and years ago in the past.
Yeah,
And we can talk
yeah,
about it, and it's not difficult for us. It's not,
right,
and so
right.
I mean, you can live like that for the rest of your life with joy, and being able to discuss this, and go through this,
Yes,
and
yeah,
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 definitely.
yeah, yeah. So this is a beautiful poem by Rumi, and it's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, emptied of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
That is really pretty.
Mm,
That is beautiful.
mm,
And
mm,
it's absolutely true because,
mm,
you know, you can take everything that is sent to you
mm.
and you can choose to learn from it, use it, or you can let it do what it will with you, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, no, absolutely relevant
Mm,
and
mm,
really really
mm,
beautiful. So,
thank you. Mm,
but that, yeah, it's awesome.
mm, mm,
Thank you so
mm.
much for talking with me. And in all honesty, I
Thank
think
you, Joe.
I might just throw up this whole thing. Yeah, I think I might just throw it all up.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, no,
mm.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, it was
Thank
really,
you. And for everything that you're doing to communicate hope, to communicate solutions,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
because it's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there, and it is a guest and it is a gift
Hmm.
that leads you to a much, as you say, to a much more joyful existence
Right.
is on the other side.
Yeah,
So thank you for
absolutely.
communicating that message.
Yeah, that is
Mm,
definitely the goal. That is
mm,
definitely the goal. I
mm,
mean, because
mm,
ultimately,
mm.
you know, regardless of I mean, honestly, joy, living with joy is the most important thing,
Yeah.
regardless of where certain treks end,
Mm,
because every life has multiple treks, and I think that,
right.
you know, and
Right.
I think that that's part of it is that, and that's one thing that I realized too. I realized how many other things I could do,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
or or I realized how many other things I could get better at, and I
Right.
did, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so those things are also very relevant, I think, when you're
Mm,
talking about
mm,
healing, you know.
mm, mm, mm.
There's just so many definitions of what healing can mean,
Yes. Yeah.
and I mean, it's just,
Mm,
you know,
mm,
it's definitely one of my goals for sure
mm,
to
mm,
help
mm,
people that have gone through
mm,
this
mm.
live joyfully
Yes.
through that
Yeah.
journey.
Mm,
um
mm.
and it's, you know, that's, I mean, because really that's really all we can, all we
Yeah.
have that we can actually choose to do, you know,
Yes.
is to
Yeah.
live joyfully,
Yeah.
because
Right.
life is life and it will always be life,
Mm. Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's it.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So great. Thank you.
All right,
Lovely
thank you.
chatting with you, Joe.
Hello, everybody, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Letting Go. Thank you again so much for watching, and hopefully that you find, I hope that you find some joy and some relief in some of this new information, so that you can try and start to transform your life in all of these other ways that are eventually going to help you with the physical symptoms of dystonia, and of vocal dystonia specifically. And this exercise, what I wanted to let you know is, first of all, I want to reference you again to the attunement exercise on Ruth Chiles' YouTube page. So definitely I want to remind you to go check that out, because it is super worthwhile. Excellent exercise. But I'm going to add to that a little bit. And this is going to be your exercise for me. Okay? And this is something that I've done throughout my time of healing. And it's good to do it several times, because then you can see progressions and you can see the list that you're going to create actually grow smaller and smaller. And so what you want to do is create a list of things that are things that are kind of given a negative aspect in your life. So things that cause you anxiety and stress, things that make you feel a certain way. You can maybe feel yourself get tight, or feel yourself get maybe even a little sick, or anything like that. When you think of these certain thoughts, certain anxieties, certain stressors, possibly behaviors from other people, these kinds of things. And we want to do this so that we can learn about ourselves and learn about the actual state of our nervous system and what actually affects us. Because a lot of times we can just say, nah, it doesn't bother me. Nah, it doesn't bother me. But really, it's not being truthful with yourself. And so this is a way to actually write down so that you can see the truth about how you react to certain things. And it's very important to be very honest with yourself at this time for these lists. And what you'll notice is that over time, this list will begin to get smaller and smaller because you start getting perspective about what actually does affect your life. Okay? So once you make this list of items, you really want to go through each one of them and really just accept it for what it is, concentrate on what it is, and really realize how it actually does affect your life. Okay? Now, you might feel it physically stress you out. You might feel it mentally or emotionally stress you out. But you can also think about it objectively in the sense of, does it actually do anything to me or to my life? Okay? And these are the moments when we can start chipping away at these things that, all of these things that can affect our nervous system. So that's one. And then there's another group of traits, okay, that can be very important to also notice about yourself. And these are the things that essentially are the active parts of your day, okay? And these active parts of your day, like getting ready for work, or dealing with a specific set of coworkers, or any type of daily activity that is repetitive. Okay, so these aren't memories; these aren't things that have happened to you in the past. These are now active things that go through every day. And you also kind of want to do the same thing with this list as well. You want to concentrate on, okay, so now I know I have to deal with these things on a daily basis. How do they actually make me feel? How do they actually affect my life? And then you can start distributing the weights back, the proper weights back to all of these things. Okay, so your two lists: one, things that have caused you a lot of anxiety, happenings in your life, moments of time, sad memories, fights, whatever they may be. And then an active list of things that actively cause you to react in certain ways. And they might be varying degrees, okay? But it's good to note what affects you in big ways, what affects you in small ways. And you can start learning yourself again. And then you can start coming to the realization of, how much does this actually affect me on a day-to-day basis? And why? And should it? Okay? Because it could be that you feel very deeply about this one thing, and so it affects you like this. But when it's looked at finally objectively, when you give it its time and its space, then you might realize that it actually is maybe worth about that much. Okay? And throughout this, you end up learning yourself. You end up learning your nervous system, and coming to terms and to grips with these helps you again to realize that you are not actually in danger all the time, okay? And that you don't actually have to be running in that type of mode. It's all about learning who you are, learning yourself, and possibly you might even have aha moments of why you might be like that, okay? And then that even provides deeper understanding of yourself and learning of yourself. Okay. So, and again, all of this is neutral, and it's neither bad nor good. You're just learning about you. You're learning about you, because if you have focal dystonia, more than likely you didn't know all that much about yourself. You thought you did, but there's so much more to you than what you realize. So that's the exercise for this time around, and I hope to see you on the next episode. We'll see you guys later. God bless. Let go. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Letting Go. And of course, I thank you for your support through this journey of focal dystonia. And please like and subscribe, and of course, share the message. And stay tuned for future episodes, methods, lessons, and thoughts. We'll see you soon. God bless.